So Robert, you're going to start us off. Your topic is the good of the whole is more important than the good of the individual, correct?
Yes.
All right. Take it away whenever you're ready.
The good of the whole is more important than the good of the individual. The statement is expressing how it is more important that the majority gets what they want instead of the minority. Throughout history, people often abuse their power or use it for greedy causes. Many people have been killed and cultural development has been stunted. Countries that are now third world countries could have been second or even first world countries. I believe that the good of the whole is more important than the good of the individual. Many of history's big bad events could have been avoided. The French Revolution is a perfect example. The social structure at the time was made up of 3 estates. The third estate made up 98% of the French population, yet they were underfed and poor. The first and second estates, on the other hand, lived in luxury and extravagance, and this sense of unfairness led to the French Revolution. During the French Revolution, over 15,000 people were executed by guillotine, and another 25,000 were killed across France. Tsarist Russia is another example. Tsar Nicholas II spent most of his money on himself, while his country was in shambles. On March 8, 1917, the February Revolution started. Tsar Nicholas II and his family were forced to abdicate the throne and were executed. During the following years, communism developed and over 50 million people were killed under the Joseph Stalin's rule. All the disorder could have been avoided if Tsar Nicholas II cared more about his country than himself. This is just one reason why the good of the whole is more important than the good of the individual. Another point is, the drive for power can lead to the civilization being stunted in growth and development. One example is the Atlantic slave trade. Many African rulers during the Atlantic slave trade started wars against other African kingdoms to take prisoners to sell as a working force. The greed of the African rulers reduced the total African population dramatically. 2/3 of the slaves that were taken were also men, leaving far more women and children in Africa. This slowed down innovation. My opponent may argue that it was a king's decision, but I disagree because kings are not always right. The Aztecs and the Inca are another example of inhibited cultural development. The Aztecs and the Inca were still developing civilizations, but the Spanish conquest of those civilizations killed millions of people. The reduction of their numbers restricted their unique cultures from being shared with the world. Many countries were stunted in growth and innovations, and they were still underdeveloped. Joseph Franklin Rutherford once said, "False riches, consisting of money, houses, and lands, acquired by selfish means at cost to others, and thereafter used selfishly, are almost always used for the oppression of other persons." It is telling us that selfishness is not the answer. It puts others into oppression and makes their lives unbearable. As we can see, it's not a person that makes a community, it's a group. Thank you. I now stand ready for cross-examination.
If your parents decide to stop working, do you agree that your family would be affected?
Yes.
Which proves my point of each individual plays an important role in the success of the whole.
But even if they do play an important role, it's still for the good of the whole family.
Which proves my point of the good of the individual affects the good of the whole, therefore it's more important.
But the good of the whole, in the end, is resulting in more people being happy in the end.
But in your family, not everyone has the same role to play.
Yeah.
And if each of us play our role, we make a difference in the family. But if you take away one of these roles, the whole is incomplete. For example, who drives you to school every morning?
My parents.
If they stopped driving you to school, you would be affected, right?
Yeah, but they're doing it for the good of the whole family. And that is more important than just having one person receiving something, since the whole family is being benefited.
But I'm saying that the individual is affecting the whole. If there was no person to drive you to school, then you would be affected personally.
Yes, but that won't affect my whole entire family.
Moving on. If we were all goalies in soccer, do you think the game would be as popular as it is now?
No.
Well, do you think we would even be able to play if everyone had the same position?
No.
Then you would agree that each individual plays an important role in impacting the game.
Yes, but those individuals play for the whole team. They're helping the whole team and benefiting it instead of just doing it for their own causes.
But each player has its own pattern it needs to follow to help the team succeed. And by saying this, I'm trying to prove that the good of the individual affects the whole.
Time.
Because
You can go right ahead, huh?
I disagree with the statement. The good of the whole is more important than the good of the individual. Eleanor Roosevelt smartly quoted, "Remember always that you not only have the right to be an individual, you have an obligation to be one." I believe that we must all exercise our personal talents, unique skills, and knowledge to succeed in life. Each person brings something new to the table. Collectively, this makes the whole stronger. The good of the individual, however, is key to the success of the whole. It's Einstein who progressed us forward in new groundbreaking mathematics and physics. Elon Musk, whose innovative technology is changing the way we use our natural resources. Mother Teresa, who shows how to be kind in a time when the world desperately needs it. It is not a group of people who make a difference. It is individual leaders who inspire the world to be better. The good of the individual affects the good of the whole. My first example is from George Orwell's Animal Farm. Throughout the novel, Orwell describes the horse named Boxer as having a strong work ethic and good nature. Even as Boxer grew old and his muscles became weak, he works harder than all the animals combined to build a work-efficient windmill. Because of his persistence, the windmill was built in 2 years. It was Boxer who accomplished something that benefited everyone else. My second example is team sports. Each player on a team contributes something to the game that shapes the outcome. In tennis, winning your court gives your team an advantage. In soccer, an offensive player who scores a goal brings the team close to victory. In track, a runner who has the fastest time in an individual race can help the team win. People can be influenced to believe that they should only focus on the greater good. It's the individual, however, who progresses humankind forward by contributing beauty, kindness, cutting-edge innovation, and out-of-the-box thinking. History has proven that the individuals who change the world are the ones who do not conform to the behavior and thoughts of everyone else. I'm going to give you an example you can relate to. Family. Each of you have a role to play in your household. You probably have one or two parents who work to pay the bills. One of your parents probably cooks. One of them drives you to school or to sports practice. Your role is to be a student. Take one of these individuals away, and your family dynamic could change drastically. Each individual helps complete the whole. The same idea can be applied on a larger scale. Over 42.1 million immigrants entered the U.S. in 2015. These immigrants make up nearly 13% of our population. Within our country, there are over 313 religions and innumerable nationalities. This diversity makes America brilliant and strong. Every individual accomplishment impacts the whole and contributes to the success of our world. Thank you. I now stand ready for cross-examination.
So imagine you're playing on a team where everyone is as good as each other, but one person is being a ball hog. Even though the others want to play the game, the ball hog never wants to pass the ball. So, do you think that he is contributing something good to the whole team? And if so, why?
No, not necessarily, but he could be a ball hog because he keeps scoring baskets, and if you keep scoring these baskets, it helps contribute to the whole and helps the team win.
But even though he may score like many baskets, if he passes to other people, the chances of them scoring will be better. So are you saying that if it is better that person gets what he wants, but it makes his community crumble?
No, I'm not saying that. But if each of the individuals on the team are the same, don't you think the other opposing team would be able to figure out the patterns of play and their strategy, rather than one individual being different?
Okay, moving on. So imagine you have a younger sibling that is around 6. Your parents ask you, what do you want to eat for breakfast? Your mom prepares the food, does not have any say in the discussion, because she will be making what everyone wants. You and your dad want some delicious buttered country-style biscuits with bacon and eggs, but your brother/sister wants bagels with hard-boiled eggs. Your mom can only make one type of dish. Do you think your brother/sister should get what they want, Or do you think the majority should get what they want? Also take into consideration that the mom agrees with you and your dad.
Well, I believe that it kind of depends on whether or not like the person has gotten to pick what they want for breakfast. And given that, don't you think that the whole should accept that the individual should get what they want?
Okay.
Time. You both have 1 minute to prepare your closing statements. Time. So Robert, if you come present your closing statement.
The good of the whole is more important than the good of the individual. Throughout our complicated history, many people have used their powers to oppress others or stunt the growth of countries. Millions have died or had their freedom taken away because of this. My opponent argued that sometimes it has to be an individual that does good to make the whole be better. But I disagree because sometimes the individual might not do that, which is most of the cases in history. She also stated that without certain individuals doing something, the goal of the whole group could not be achieved. But if everyone works together, and even though the individual is doing something, it benefits the whole group, but not the individual. We don't need to be greedy or selfish. As Mahatma Gandhi put it, there is sufficiency in the world for a man's need, but not for a man's greed.
Collaboration, innovation, discovery, and excellence are some of the words we use to describe Cary Academy. These words, however, would be impossible to achieve if each of us as a whole were the same. One of the most prominent qualities that makes Cary Academy unique is the wide variety of cultural diversity. Each of us as individuals brings a new perspective into account. We derive from different backgrounds, have different ethnicities, nationalities. At Cary Academy, these characteristics are encouraged and celebrated. In addition, 90% of the CA student body plays a variety of sports. I know, however, this opportunity would not be possible if each of us played the same role. For instance, how popular would field hockey be if we were all in defense? Not at all. Like I mentioned in my opening statement, each individual affects the whole. My opponent argued that collaboration is more beneficial than one person leading. I disagree. It is the individual who thinks outside the box and who makes a difference. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.